I had some books on my Kindle. Gotta have that in the picture. You know what? Let's do this. Oh yeah. Let's get brave. Let's get brave. Please don't fall. Oh, okay. Almost fell. This time it's over. Gotta have a shot in that. What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. Today I'm going to recap all of the things that I read this week. Well, all of the things that I read, what I'm still reading, and what I plan to read next. First up, I finished A Brightness Long Ago by Guy Gavriel Kay. I am so glad that I read this book for many reasons. Steven, you know which one is the first one. I love Guy Gavriel Kay, but after reading this one, the only other one I've read by him so far is Tagana. I'm gonna read more, but what I've learned, this guy is a guy who writes in a way that is for mood readers. What do I mean by that? He has a very romantic style of writing, which I do enjoy. There's a lot of beautiful one-liners that he has, just beautiful thoughts and things about life that I love to read, but I have to be in the mood for him. When I try to schedule him in a TBR, it doesn't work because if I'm not in the mood for this slow type of burn, I don't enjoy it as much and I take it out on him. Like, this one is middle of the road for me. I finished it and I did not think immediately, I can't wait to reread that someday. I think I got all of my enjoyment out of it on the first read. I also had trouble reading it physically. My mind would wander and I would just lose interest, at least until I got about 20% of the way in. So I ended up switching it over to an immersion read. Simon Vance is the audiobook narrator and he was just magic. This story is Italian inspired, so Simon just really nailed the pronunciations of the names of people and places. It's a great political intrigue story, you think, but at the end, I think it was a love story. A different type. I don't just mean romantic. Was there someone in here he loved? Yes. But what else did he love? What else did life give to him that he loved? I liked that it was an older gentleman telling a story about his life and the many things that happened, and he would say, if I had not made this decision, I would have lived a much different life. I really loved that. And Guy Gavriel Kay did something I was kind of shocked about. He made a horse race one of the most exciting things I have ever read about. That was my favorite thing that happened in this story, was this horse race. And if you've read it, you know why. I loved that. But again, I don't know that I would ever reread this one. As far as short fiction, what did I finish? Well, the first thing that I read is Interstate Love Affair by Stephen Graham Jones from his collection 3 Miles Past. Interstate Love Affair is a short story that is very much in the same vein as The Least of My Scars. There were some very cringe-worthy moments. I do not appreciate Mr. Jones using animals, a certain animal, in the way that he did. At the end of the story, I went and checked to see if he had written anything about it in his notes, and he had. And he said he finally took his own advice that he gives other writers, and that is to write about what scares you the most. And I can't tell you what that is for him because it would be a spoiler for the story, but Interstate Love Affair. What does that make you think of? Trucks, 18-wheelers, travel, hitchhikers, roadkill. Ugh. I just can't say you guys should read this. This type of story is not for everybody. There is some body horror in here. There are some things done to animals that I just cannot in good conscience say, go read this. But if you're a fan of Stephen Graham Jones and you haven't gotten to it yet, if you liked The Least of My Scars, that one is about a serial killer where we are in the serial killer's mind and we are witness to things that he has done to his victims. If you read that and loved it and you didn't mind that body horror not one bit, then I would say give this one a try. So I'm looking forward, sort of, to seeing what the other 2 stories are about in this collection. It's Stephen Graham Jones. I'm going to read it. I just hope I don't cringe as much. I think I got a few extra wrinkles in my forehead from just scrunching my face up. Next, I read Uncle Monday by Zora Neale Hurston. When I saw Uncle Monday was considered a classic fantasy, it was published in 1934, And it is about Uncle Monday, who's a hoodoo man for this little town, which means it satisfied the classic fantasy prompt from the February Stories event, which is hosted by the Bookish Bryant. I'll have all of that information down below if you want to take part in that event. But this story is about Uncle Monday, who is a character I have met previously in Zora's works. She likes to write about this particular town a lot. You see these people pop up in most of her stories and novels. Uncle Monday, I've met in passing. This little short story is his origin story as best as we can tell from when he arrived in this town. He just came walking out of the swamp, past one of the dudes headed into town. And when I say walking out of the swamp, I mean like walking over the water, like Jesus out of the swamp. And so there's already a lady in town, Aunt Judy, who is a hoodoo woman. And they get into a bit of a competition. Well, that's probably the wrong word. Aunt Judy sees it as competition. Uncle Monday does not. And he handles that woman. And y'all, it is so funny. I just love this story. I love Zora's work. I love this town. I love these people. So when I saw that story satisfied that prompt, I jumped all over it. While we are talking about February fantasy stories, this week's prompt is Sword and Sorcery. So on my Kindle, I read the first story in the Elementals collection by Stuart Sims. And the first story is called Ursa. Now, each of these 4 stories are about mental health and these characters dealing with it. The first story is about Shiro. And I say Shiro. Shiro is not his true given name. Shiro is the name that the leader gave him when his soldiers captured Shiro. Shiro translates to mean demon. And the reason why he got this name is even though he was able to perform magic that was coveted by the leaders and they planned to make use of him, they called him a demon because he was from a lower class and they did not like that someone from the lower class could perform this magic. Because he was lower class, he was treated horribly. And he never fully realizes just how bad it is. Now, he does understand that he is unhappy and he has forgotten the name that his parents gave him. He knows he's unhappy, but he doesn't fully realize what is going on here until he meets someone who truly opens his eyes to the treatment he's receiving. And with that realization comes freedom. Wonderfully written. It's very interesting. The magic is interesting. I hope the other 3 stories in this collection follow along the same group of people, the same culture. So I'm looking forward to continuing that collection. Next is my Stephen King short story that I read from Night Shift. I think I have 1 or 2 more stories in here. But I read The Man Who Loved Flowers. Absolutely love that short story. It is in contention for being my favorite out of this collection. We'll see once I finish. But this one is one that Stephen King does something that he still does to this day. That is one of the things I love most about him. And how I've always described it is I say, nobody writes small town USA like Stephen King does. Meaning, like in this story, it's a young man walking through New York City, apparently going home or going to see his sweetheart because he has such a look of, he is in love. He's just got that smile on his face, that look in his eye. And as he is walking through New York, the people on the street vendors, they see him and it takes them back. Nostalgia. They remember when they met their husband or wife when they were that age. The women think, oh, I remember when I had a young man who looked at me that way. And it's just such a beautiful story. You care about this young man. You care about the people he's passing on the streets. You care about their stories. And then Stephen King reminds you who is writing that story. It's so good. It's so good. If you don't read any other short story by Stephen King, I would say that is the one to read. Absolutely loved it. I also read episode 5 of a mini tale. Now, this one is called Only in the Mind. This is part 2 of a 4-part little mini arc, and I don't know how to describe this one to you without spoiling the first one. Guys, please go check out aminitale.com. It is absolutely free. You just click on there. There's a new episode every week. And I would actually encourage, if you are going to read a mini tale, or if you've started and you haven't gotten to where I am, I would read episode 4 and 5 together, because both of them together really form an excellent beginning to this arc. And I think I'm about to meet a major player that's going to be involved in the rest of this larger arc here. So good, so good. I have to say, so each week there's a different piece of art that goes with the episode, and the art really captured, in my opinion, depth of feeling. Like when you look at the character, it just really, and yes, he is wearing a mask, but his body language just really portrays. I can't tell you, you guys, you gotta read this. You have to read this. And then finally, I read Psychotherapy by Ryan Hyatt. Guys, is this not one of the most fabulous covers you have ever seen? This story is not out yet. It will be out February 17th on godless.com. I will have that link down in the description box down below. But Ryan is doing a double feature. He's going to have Psychotherapy and his first book, Rise of the Liberators, which I actually have here. I've read the second book in the Terrified series. This is the first one. They're standalones. You don't have to read one to read the other. But there's little nods in the second one, the psychic memoirs that I read, that made me really want to read this one. Plus, the cover makes me really want to read this one. I mean, look at that cover. That looks like a huge robot in the background. We've got helicopters, we've got soldiers, we've got explosions. I mean, if this was turned into a movie, Michael Bay would be directing. Anyway, I digress. Psychotherapy. What is this one about? It is a short story that is a blend of science fiction and horror in the best of ways. This one has a very normal opening. Two officers, one's in the car doing something, the other one comes out of the gas station, he's like, hey, I got all these snacks. Then something happens immediately that lets me know all is not what it seems. Turns out, aliens had invaded. They ended up nuking California to keep them from hopefully spreading over into the rest of the US. But of course, did they ever really get all of them? Like, how can you know? You don't know how many came to know if you got them all. What does the government do? Do they make decisions based on the good of all mankind? No, they think, how can we use this to our advantage? Oh, can we use some of these creatures to keep our citizens in line? Well, yeah, we can. Or we can try. I absolutely loved it, and I cannot wait to read Rise of the Liberators because there was a nod to this book in this short story, and I want to know, is this one about when these aliens invaded? We'll have to find out. I'll let you guys know as soon as I read it. And so that takes care of all of the things that I've completed. What am I still working on? I am still working on The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This is a read-along that I am co-hosting with the Codex Cantina, Paveo from Attention, and Christy Lewis from Christy Lewis Dostoevsky in Space. We did have a kickoff live stream on my channel last Thursday night, and my challenge to my co-host was, convince me to read this book, because I've read Crime and Punishment, I've read Brothers Karamazov, I DNF'd Crime and Punishment, I liked Brothers K, okay, it got really info dumpy, which just, I was not enjoying that so much. Neither one do I ever have plans to reread, and I was wondering, could this be the one where I fall in love with Dostoevsky? And so I challenged my co-host, I'm like, all right, you guys have to convince me to read this, and they did. I started it the next day. My plan was, since this was a 2-month read-along, to read like 10 or 11 pages per day. As you can see, that has not happened. I've read more. I'm really enjoying it. One thing you can say about Fyodor Dostoevsky, he knows how to write some dynamic characters. They're hilarious. They are chaotic. I mean, the conversations these characters have, you need to have like 4 cups of coffee to keep up. But I love it. Absolutely love it. But I feel like I can really relate to the main character, Prince Mushkin, here, because half the time these conversations are happening around him and he's like, I have no idea what's happening. He just kind of stands there and watches. I don't know that I have uncovered like the main plot for this one yet, or if I haven't recognized it. So I'll keep you guys updated as I continue to read through. The other book that I started that I'm still working on is Waking Ursa Minor by Helen Rye Peterson. And another moment to just appreciate a gorgeous cover. And I would have 100% requested this arc based on the cover alone had I seen it first. but I didn't see it. My friend Rosalie saw it on Instagram, shared it in Discord, and was like, guys, this author has this book up on Instagram. You can request an ARC. So we all went and looked, we read the description, and every one of us was like, oh, we need to have this. We requested it. I think all of us that requested it got approved. I started a read along in Discord. Everybody seems to be enjoying it so far. I have only read the prologue as of right now. I started it last night. I couldn't tell you what it's about, but it is an epic fantasy. It is the first book in the debut series, Riverda Rising, or is it Riverda Rising? I don't know how to pronounce it. This one doesn't have an audiobook for me to go listen to and cheat yet. So there were a lot of people with strange names. The types of people had strange names. There are fantasy maps at the beginning that tell us where we are. So far, the author is checking all of the boxes for a good fantasy novel. This one comes out February 22nd, I believe. So this is going to be my main focus read. I want to get that read so I can get it reviewed in time for when the book releases. Of course, I'll update you guys next week. Hopefully, I'll have it done. If not, I'll be very close and can let you guys know what I think about it. So those are the only two things I am currently reading. Once I finish Waking Ursa Minor, I will go directly into a book that I'm beta reading for an author. And I don't know if I'm allowed to tell anybody about that, so I'm just going to keep it a secret. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to read it. I've never beta read anything. I'm not sure that I know what I'm doing. I hope I don't screw it up. I hope I provide good feedback that is useful. I hope. My fear is I'm just going to read it, I'm going to blaze through it, I'm just going to love it because I've loved everything this author's written. We'll see what happens there. After that, I'm going to go into Nana by Mark Towse. That's the creepy one about the grandma. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. And then will be Basil Broketail by Christopher... Starts with an M? Does it start with an M or does it start with an R? I think it's an M. I can't remember his name, but at least I remember the main character's name. Oh, I'm also starting today One Piece. I'm getting back into the manga One Piece by Akira Oda. The latest box set for volume 71 through 90 something came out recently and Una snagged it. So now that he has those in his clutches, we will be getting into the next arc of One Piece, which I think is called Dressrosa. I'm not quite sure. I'll let you guys know next week. Of course, I'll be reading some more short stories. I don't have those mapped out. I kind of like to just pick those the morning of. So you'll have to wait and hear about those next week. Guys, thank you so much for being here today and listening to me ramble about books. I hope you have had a wonderful start to your day. I hope the rest of your day and weekend is absolutely wonderful. Have you read anything this week that you have got to climb to the top of the Bookworm mountain and shout about? Let me know in those comments down below. Guys, have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one.